and welcome to another video of me trying to deal with my mental health while living on the road. And today we're dealing with my fridge because I have left it for far too long and it is disgusting. Dealing with this fridge feels like dealing with my mental health when you leave it for too long and you let it sit and don't take care of it or clean it out or just do even just like the minor general maintenances. It becomes an absolute disgusting mess. So join me. Now it may not look that gross, it smells bad, but there is just a bunch of water in the bottom there, and I know it's going to be slimy and really gross, and I'm not stoked for that. Turn it off, just so that way we're not draining unnecessary water. This is where saving all my bags comes in handy. Something else I wanted to touch on this in regards to mental health and environmentalism and just how I believe it's all connected. When you're not doing well, one of the last things you want to be doing is cooking for yourself and just eating well in general. And it's really unfortunate, frustrating when those feelings come at a time after you've just done a grocery shop and then you throw out all this food that just ends up going bad. It just feeds that cycle of feeling shitty because now you're feeling shitty for throwing what could have been perfectly good food. You feel like and you just, it feeds that whole narrative of feeling like you're not doing enough, of like you're like lying to yourself and you're not like fully living in line with your values, and it just feeds that really shitty narrative when really it's in those moments where you need to practice being kind with yourself even more because you're doing the best you can. And sometimes the best doesn't look like how you want it to look, and you just have to accept that that's okay. You're not going to be 100% all the time as much as you want to be, and it's learning to be patient and kind with yourself in regards to that, and know that it won't always be like this. Even when it is, it will pass eventually. But it's finding ways of setting yourself up better for the future when these things do come up again. When they inevitably will. And that's what we're working on. That's what we're learning. We're still not there. But we are trying. And that's all you can ask of yourself. Really. Just take one step at a time. You don't put any pressure on yourself to get to any specific point by any specific time. Just moving through it the best that you can. That's all you can ask of yourself. And ideally you do before the water starts to look like this. Fuck. We've got everything out. Throwing stuff away. Getting there. Now for my favorite part of trying to get the fridge out of this spot. There's a drain at the bottom, but honestly that gets really gross, so I'm just gonna have to dump it out. It's easier to get it out than it is to put it back in. So this part isn't too hard, thankfully. I'm just gonna dump it at the front of the van because that's just how it is today. Scrub it out. I feel like I do this a little bit differently every time. But today, take a look at that. That is gross. This is embarrassing. But again, this is the realities of van life. And when mental health shit hits the fan. Also, just honestly wanting to show you this because I know we all know this. We all know that social media glamorizes a lot of stuff, and we're reminded of this every day, ideally, if you're following people who are more transparent about both the glamour and the fun side of things, as well as the shitty side of things. And as much as I feel I am pretty transparent in a lot of ways, I don't think I've ever actually shown you how bad it can get for me sometimes. And this isn't for pity, this isn't asking for people to come out and be like, oh my god, are you okay? What can I do? But that's not what I'm looking for. I know for me when things start to get bad, I know when to recognize it. I use soap today because it's necessary. What I'm doing this more so to show you that while this life looks glamorous and fun and different type of challenging, mental health still exists out here. Getting to live a more free lifestyle and just living on the road and being able to get up and go whenever you want, I love it. And I think it holds a lot of value. And I think a lot of people, it can help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. It's definitely not for everyone. Let me get that clear. But I think it's easy to think that, oh, you live this super fun free life. Like, how could anything be wrong? So, shit still feels wrong sometimes, and still doesn't feel okay all the time, and that's okay. But just wanting to show that side of this life, just so people know that they're not alone in it. Because it is also hard when you're not. I mean, I'm also not working right now, so I don't have that type of community or like. I have an amazing support system, and I'm so lucky with my friends and family that I have, both back home that I've made here in Australia. But I am alone a lot of the time. And when you're alone a lot of the time and you're seeking community in this type of environment, it involves you being on your phone a lot more. And when you're on your phone a lot more, that really isn't good for your mental health. And you get into the scrolling and the spending endless time on the screen, which is really not helpful. So it's trying to find ways of balancing it all. I didn't use soap, did I? No, I didn't. Put a little bit in. It's Castile soap, so it's really concentrated. Oh, it smells nice. It's the peppermint. Spearmint. Dealing with this feels like dealing with my mental health. In terms that, you know, sometimes you're going to leave it, sometimes it's going to pile up and it's going to get really overwhelming, and it's going to get really messy, and it's going to get really gross, and you're going to leave it for a long time sometimes, because it takes work to keep on top of all the time, and you don't always have the energy for that. But when you do clean it out, you can feel the weight, and you can feel the tidiness begin to unfold in your mind. And, you know, there's going to be stains and scratches left behind, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be a problem all the time. They're not always going to weigh on you. They'll always be with you, but it's learning how to move forward with them. You'll also have people's opinions and comments on it, and that's also okay. You don't have to listen to them. But it's also knowing that you have to keep on top of it if you don't want it to keep coming up for you. And you'll get into groups where that feels really easy, and you can do it, and you get into a good rhythm, and you feel like, oh, I'll never go back to that mindset. And maybe you won't. And that's really good. That's the ultimate goal. But for a lot of us, that isn't realistic always. This is unfortunate sometimes just a project that will be never ending, and that's also okay. And I don't want to use the word project. You're not a project. You don't always have to be working to improve or be better or do better. You're a person living life and going through experiences, and sometimes experiencing those experiences will be hard. You don't always have to be fixing yourself. There's not needs to fix. You don't have to view yourself as broken, because you're not. You're really not. You're just struggling, and that's okay. You're allowed to struggle. Life is hard. It's so fucking hard sometimes, and sometimes it's just a matter of rolling with the waves. And when you do that, when you allow yourself to just take one step at a time and give yourself that patience and that grace to just move through life. The animals are just all over me today. Yeah, when you give yourself that time and that grace and that patience, or allow yourself to accept that it's okay to not be okay all the time. When you are ready to take those steps into weeding out some of the mess, it will get clean and it will be okay. And now look, we got a clean fridge. Clean fridge, organized. Makes my heart and brain very happy. Now for the fun part. Get this back in. You know, I used to try and plug it back in while actually, this mic really makes a big difference. Normally I try and plug it in from the outside here, and this isn't always pulled all the way. You know what? This might actually be really smoothly today. Let's check it out. Feels like there's so many metaphors in what just happened here right now. That's cool. That's really cool. I like that. Yeah. Normally that is never smooth. Never. Never, never, never. This is what happens when you're on a bit of a slight hill. What is happening? Oh fuck, you know what's happening? The cord's probably in the way. Yeah. Something so minor. We're gonna try that again. My little spiel on how I compare dealing with my fridge to dealing with my mental health on the road. This whole life is just such a journey.